So, the big question is this: how are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough? Use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams. Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. If you like this video, do not forget to hit that like button now. Or if you want us to improve our content, go ahead and hit the thumbs down button and give us your feedback in the comment section below. Here at Tetranoodle, we are passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. Every week, we bring you insightful and engaging interviews, tips, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your business or rise in your corporate profession. So, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And do not forget to hit that bell icon so that you are notified when we publish new content. Hello, and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams show. And today we will be talking with Tsufit, who is an award winning author, and her latest book is called Step into the Spotlight. It's a guide to getting noticed. Tsufit is a former lawyer who has been described by the Toronto Star as a starburst of energy, bright, bubbly, and upbeat. And we'll find that out during this interview as well. It's been published by Publisher Weekly and she has been described by Publishers Weekly as coaching dynamo. Her book has been endorsed by many New York Times best-selling authors and experts. Tsufit coaches professionals, entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, speakers, coaches, consultants, and CEOs to catapult their personal brands and themselves into a starring role. She coaches her clients to get seen, get heard, and get noticed. Tsufit is in demand as a keynote speaker, radio and TV show guest, seminar leader, and mom. Although she points out that she's not currently taking on any new clients in the last category, so that's good. Welcome, Tsufit.
My pleasure. Pleasure to be here, Manuj.
We are so excited to learn all about getting into the spotlight. So let's start there. How do you get into the spotlight? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've been wanting. Can I tell you a little bit about my background, because then you'll understand kind of the context of this whole thing. And by the way, you asked me off the air how you pronounce my name. It's actually pronounced Tsufit. Tsufit.
Sorry.
And I promised you, Manuj, I would tell you a funny story about that. I was being interviewed by a terrestrial radio show, which means, what quote unquote real radio, the old fashioned kind of radio. Mm-hmm. And she asked me how you pronounce my name, and I said Tsufit, and she was calling me Tsufit. And I said, no, feet, right? So she wrote down feet so she would remember, and on the air she comes and says, hello, everybody, and welcome. And today we have award-winning author Tsufit. So she remembered the feet part. She just got it wrong. But anyway, okay, so how did I get started in the spotlight? I was a little kid, and I remember always singing with the neighborhood kids, putting on little shows. And when I was in high school and in college and university, I was in the musicals and in the local theater. And eventually I started to do, bigger things with that. I put out a music CD and promoted it to make top album lists on radio around the world. And I got on a sitcom for 4 years actually a Canadian sitcom. We're both in Canada. A sitcom where I played a comedic cafeteria lady named Ludmila. And so I come by this, honestly, this spotlight thing. But eventually I wanted to focus a little bit more on something that would be more practical, because I'd been a lawyer for 10 years, had 4 baby daughters in 4 years, and then decided to follow my dream. Your show is called Bootstrapping Your Dreams. Well, my dream was to be a singer, an actress, and a comedian. But here I was, a lawyer, because my parents wanted me to be practical, and I was, a good student. So, and I loved debating. So people said Tsufit's going to end up becoming a lawyer, and that's exactly what happened. But after about 10 years of being a litigation lawyer, they're the actors of the legal profession, the ones who go to court. I said, no, I'm doing this. And so I left the law and followed my dream, which was to be a singer, actress, comedian. Well, after about 6 years of doing that, I thought, you know what, this is kind of stressful. I have to provide for my family. So I thought, well, how can I use the skills of that and still still do what I want to do, but support my family. And so I started coaching other people to follow their dreams. And that was the name of my first coaching business. It was called Follow That Dream, which was all great, except for one thing. Yeah, you can follow your dream, but if you don't make money doing it, it's not going to be sustainable for that long. And that's exactly what I found out when I was going out singing. I mean, I could go and perform in folk festivals and perform in comedy clubs and whatever, but that's not enough to raise 4 children.
Yeah.
So I started focusing on the more practical aspects, which was how do you attract clients? And the way I learned to attract clients was by learning, actually not learning, I already knew how, but was by stepping into the spotlight. So I would go to the local networking meeting, the BNI or the Board of Trade or the, Chamber of Commerce, whatever it is. And you know how they give you 30 seconds to introduce your business, they pass around the microphone. Well, I took that 30 seconds like I had 30 seconds on national TV and I was doing a little 30-second show. And everybody else is standing up and saying, hi, I'm an accountant for all your accounting needs. And the next person, hi, I'm a realtor. Now is a really good time to buy yourself a house. Hi, I'm a financial advisor for all your investment needs. And then Tsufit stands up, me, and I'm doing a show, right? I'm doing 30, and I had a lineup of people waiting to speak to me afterwards. So it's because I stepped into the spotlight. And I remember, Manuj, the first let's say 6 months that I went to these business networking meetings to get clients, people were telling me, Tsufit, you're doing it wrong. First of all, you should come wearing a suit. I used to go wearing kind of really colorful things. Like I would wear, maybe a Chinese jacket or something from India or something from, something ethnic, something beautiful and colorful. And they'd say, no, you really should wear a professional suit. And you should introduce yourself like this. Hello, I'm Tsufit. I'm a business coach for all your business coaching. And I thought, wait a second, I'm the one with the lineup. And 6 months later, they're putting me on stage to teach all those guys that previously told me that I was doing it wrong, to teach them how to do it the way I was doing it. So I realized that the missing element was this step into the spotlight piece of it. So your initial question that you asked me, Manuj, is how do you step into the spotlight? That's what you asked me? It's a very broad question, and I wrote 288 pages to answer that question. It's a book called Step into the Spotlight, which your listeners can check out if you go to www.spotlightbook.com, But I will briefly answer you. There are a few ways to step into the spotlight. One is to figure out what your message really is, right? What are you really selling? And it's not the insurance or the pens or the apples or the coaching service. What are you really selling? So go behind it. And then how can you color it? How can you color it in? How can you add color and flavor so that people remember that they met you and that they remember what you said? So you can do that by telling stories. The other way to step into the spotlight is to get some publicity for yourself. So the Toronto Star did a full-page article. I forget I think the headline was "Teaching the World to Dream in Technicolor," and they had a picture of me standing with my guitar on the gray, boring steps of Bay Street down where I used to work as a lawyer. So you see all these, people in business suits passing by, gray business suits, and I'm standing there in a colorful outfit. So the answer to your question, Manuj, would take years to properly answer. And even my book is just the beginning of the answer, but that's a little bit of a clue.
Awesome. So it sounds like, it's there are a lot of parallels between what you're trying to teach and show business. Is that correct?
That's exactly it. And that was the premise of the book, that all business is show business. And in fact, when you think about show business, what is show business? Show business is in the business of telling stories. Right? Show business is in the business of selling stories, right? Show business understands that it cannot exist without an audience, right? The most valuable and bankable asset for anyone in show business is star quality. And these things that I just said are true for any business, but you know what? Most entrepreneurs and business people did not get the memo, and they don't really understand what I just said.
Sure. No, I completely get what you're saying. And now I'm going to ask you a controversial question, but let's keep the controversy aside and focus on the topic. The greatest showman in today's age, in my opinion, is Donald Trump. So, he basically, came into the spotlight and basically became the most powerful person in the world by using his talent of, sort of enchanting the crowds. So what do you say about that? And is there anything positive that we can learn from that?
Okay, first of all, Manuj, I applaud you for going to the controversial question, because most people run away from that. First of all, most people want to keep their podcast evergreen. So anybody listening to this is going to know more or less when it was done, hopefully within a 4-year period rather than an 8-year period. But anyway, we'll find out. But I applaud you for asking that question, and I have a very good answer to it. But before I give you my very good answer to it, I have to tell you about something personal. One of the endorsements on the back of my Step into the Spotlight book is from Al Ries, R-I-E-S, who is like one of the biggest marketing and advertising gurus, I think, of the last century. In fact, he was named one of the biggest gurus of the last century. And he said, "We live in a celebrity-driven world, and Tsufit tells you how to take advantage of that fact. Read this book to turn yourself into another Donald Trump or Richard Branson." Now, Manuj, when he said that, Donald Trump was a New York realtor, a real estate, tycoon, whatever. That was it. And at that time, Richard Branson wasn't on everybody's lips. Not everybody knew who he was, but everybody knew who Donald Trump was. So I truncated that. On the back of my business card, I took that endorsement and I just said Donald Trump, and I left out the other part, right? Well, it's gotten to the point that fast forward a few years, it's embarrassing to have that business card. And in fact, I should reprint them, but I have so many. And it's on the back of my book, because, yes, the answer to your question is Donald Trump is a master of the principles that I talk about, but he also goes beyond them and does things that I would never dream that anybody should do. I would never suggest to anybody to call people, some of the things that he calls them, and to ask for people to be locked up and all those kinds of things. And I'm glad you went there, because Canadians are not known for their controversy. So this is so refreshing. I applaud you for doing that. So let me answer. We can learn a lot from Donald Trump, and anybody who is, liberal leaning is shocked when I say that. I've said it in my LinkedIn group before, of which you're a member. And by the way, of any of your listeners who want to join the LinkedIn group, if you go to www.spotlightgroup.biz, B-I-Z, and request to join, and then send me a little note telling me you heard about me on Manuj's podcast, maybe I will consider letting you in. But in that group, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was just checking out the members in that group. There are a lot of well-known names, so definitely that group.
Yeah, a lot of well-known names. So anyway, so what I wanted to tell you is that we have the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, and Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, and who's Al Ries that I just mentioned, a lot of New York Times best-selling authors, Emmy Award winners. But anyway, the reason I mention that is because during election years, very often I will post stuff about, the candidates. And I posted once, what can we learn from Donald Trump? And the answers that I got, many of them were so angry that I asked that. We can't learn anything from him. He's this, he's that, he's that. Listen, you can hate Donald Trump. You can think whatever you think about whether he's competent or not to run a country. That is not my issue. My group is not about running countries or politics, except that it's about the marketing in politics and the marketing in business and what the parallels are. And we can learn a ton from Donald Trump about marketing. In fact, we can learn a lot from dictators. I mean, I am not comparing him to a dictator, and I'm not comparing him to, I'm not making my political opinion known, hopefully. But we can learn a lot. There's a show on TVO, which I don't know if you get out in BC, but it's the public broadcaster here on my side of your country in Canada. And it's called The Dictators Playbook. And it talks about how people like Mussolini and Stalin and what's the guy from Uganda, Idi Amin, and Franco in Spain, how they did what they did. Now, of course, they killed lots of people. That's not part of it, what we can learn from marketing. But what we can learn is similar things to what we can learn here. the interaction between the candidate and the media. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump is always talking about how he hates media. There is nobody in the whole wide world who loves media more than Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly,
he's
exactly.
a consumer of media. He's a creator of media. He even allegedly, I can't prove it, but remember it was on the news about how he called in and pretended to be his own publicist. And by
Yeah,
the way, I may or may not have done something similar because it's very hard to promote yourself, but
mm-hmm.
it's very easy to promote, this other person. So I don't see
Yeah,
anything wrong with that. I mean, it's nice nowadays. We value more transparency and authenticity. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The guy knows how to manipulate the media. He speaks at I don't know, a sixth or eighth grade level.
yeah,
And while people might see that as something that they would, put him down for. Maybe it's not
yeah,
the proper thing for the leader of the free world, but it is
yeah,
the proper thing for somebody who wants to speak simply to people and be understood, right? You should speak like you're speaking to a 10-year-old, not about policy. I mean, the thing about Obama and Hillary Clinton and other, leaders, they knew a lot about a lot, and they were trying to be nuanced, and they were trying to explain. And what the vast majority of people, they don't want that level of understanding. They just want to know, are you a good guy or are you a bad guy? Are you going to make my life better? Are you not? They want to understand what you're going to say. And what Donald Trump understands is that in marketing and in politics, what you have to do is polarize your audience. And if your audience, Manuj, if you guys have a pen or a paper, or even a computer, whatever, write that down. Polarize your audience. What Donald Trump did is he managed to get elected with a third of the people in the U.S. backing him. Why?
mm-hmm.
Because he polarized his audience. He made it so black and white. You're either with me or you're against me. A lot of people in business and in politics try to cater and pander to as many people as they can, right?
Mm-hmm.
That does not work in business, and that does not work in politics. What works is to have crazy raving fans. People who love you, love you, love you, love you, or people who hate you, hate you, hate you. That's the way you want to do it in business and in politics, because for everyone that hates you, there's going to be somebody else who loves you. I mean, hopefully you want there to be one or two more so that it will tip the
Yeah,
balance in your favor. But if you go back to computers, okay, most people are PC users, okay?
yeah,
They're not Apple users, although now it's more. But, we go back 10, 20 years ago, right? Most people did not use Apple Mac products. They used PC. But I remember the first time I went to buy a PC,
mm-hmm.
when I would ask people, or when I went to buy a computer, I would ask people, which should I get? Should I get a PC or should I get an Apple? Well, the PC people said, yeah, you should probably get a PC because there's more programs or whatever. Okay, so they were kind of like,
Yeah,
the Apple people said, are you kidding me, Tsufit? There's no other choice but Apple. Come, I'll take you by the hand. I'll take you to the store. I'll help you buy one, because they are more invested.
yeah, yeah,
So the job of an entrepreneur, the job of a business person is not to please everybody. And you asked me before how you step into the spotlight. You step into the spotlight by taking strong positions. Donald Trump took strong positions. They weren't necessarily his positions, because if you look back at his record, the guy's a Democrat and the guy, supporting Democrats or whatever. But no, he saw an opportunity to become elected. So he decided, okay, here's my opportunity. I'm going to play this role. And there are some things that are authentically how he feels, and there are other things that are that make sense for him to feel if he wants to get elected. And he was brilliant in that. And whatever you say about the man in terms of his capability of running a country, he's brilliant when it comes to marketing. He's brilliant when it comes to communicating. He's brilliant when it comes to polarizing an audience and to understand the triggers that make
yeah,
people take action. The people, maybe more people supported Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or whatever, but they didn't feel the need to rush out and vote.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I completely agree. Keeping the political views aside, as I said earlier, I have noticed, how he operates, and there are a lot of similarities between, him and some other names, Kim Kardashian, and a few others, like, with arguable talent, and they rise to the top just because of using these methods. And I see a lot of similarities. Now,
And sorry, let me interrupt you for
yeah,
1 second.
yeah,
I just want to make it clear to the audience so that nobody, shuts off the radio right now or the computer in a huff and say, "Oh, Manuj and Tsufit are telling me that I have to be like Donald Trump." That is not what we're saying. That is absolutely not what we're saying. Okay. And you know what, whether it's the person is questionable to you or you like the person, whatever, is completely irrelevant to what we are discussing. What we are saying is that amongst, let's say, the 100 techniques that are used, maybe 55 of them you find abhorrent and horrible and you would never do. But if you can find 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 techniques that are being used by these people that could serve you in your business, because remember, being good at marketing works for good or for evil. Okay, people like Hitler, God forbid, we're good at marketing.
Yeah.
I'm Jewish. Those are my relatives who were murdered. But the guy was good at marketing. You got to give him that. You give him nothing else. Okay, crazy man, but he was good at marketing. Yeah. And Stalin and Mussolini and whatever, they're good at controlling. And again, we're not comparing those people to Donald Trump, so don't get irate and say that she called him, a dictator or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that, for example, he talks in stories, and here's what he does also that is brilliant. Okay, he labels his competition. Yeah. Lion Ted Cruz, low energy for Jeb Bush, crooked Hillary. Like he would take somebody and label them, and that is exactly precisely what Apple computers did to the PC. And also to what's the Microsoft guy, Bill Gates. Okay, yeah. So what they did was Apple computers. Do you remember that series of Mac versus PC? They had spots on YouTube. You can look them up, or on my blog at spotlightblog.com. And so what they did was they said that Apple is, a guy dressed in a cool black T-shirt. He's young, he's cool, he's hip, he's a little bit smug. Whereas PC was this bumbling-looking Charlie Brown, kind of slightly overweight, pudgy little guy in a ill-fitting woolen brown suit, and he couldn't fit anything, and he just, he was nice, but he was a schlemuzzle, and you just felt sorry for him, versus this cool, young, vibrant Apple guy. That's exactly what Donald Trump did, and that's what smart marketers do. I'm not suggesting you call your opponent crooked or lying. Mm-hmm. But if you can label your opponent before they label themselves, right? Yeah. I mean, look, Donald Trump labeled himself a multi-billionaire. People are still not sure if that's true or not, but people bought it. He says he's the most successful real estate magnate. We don't know, but he says it. Nobody else said differently at that time, so we believe it. And it's the kind of thing that we really have to consider in our business. What is our branding? And if you don't brand yourself, somebody else, if there's a lull, if there's a vacancy, if there's a vacuum there and you haven't branded yourself, just like PC didn't do a great job of branding themselves. I mean, it's not a company, PC, but, or Microsoft didn't do such great branding. Then along comes Apple, even though Apple was a much smaller company. And they branded not only themselves as the cool people and the people for creatives, but they branded PC as well, just like Donald Trump did with his opponents.
Yeah, so very true. And I remember some of the ads from the 80s and 90s, Apple ads, and they used very polarizing shots. Like, there was one I remember, they had this song playing in the background, "We Don't Need No Education," and there were people watching, and so it was very polarizing.
And they burst through like wasn't it 84 or something, where they burst through a curtain? I mean, Apple knows how to make an entrance, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, for a while they had colored computers, and even going back to politics, I think it was it 1964? I don't know if it was Lyndon Johnson or whatever, but they showed like a little girl in a field of daisies or something. That I think they were talking about nuclear war or something, but they use strong imagery and they're polarizing. Yeah. Right? They did the same with this released murderer or something, and they were using that to say, if you don't vote for our guy, this is the kind of thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Now, obviously these are good points. Again, I think we are being polarizing, but I think there are some important lessons to be learned here. But the very first step here in this whole process of getting into the spotlight is to let go of your shyness and come out of your shell. So how do you train people to do that?
Well, that's a very good question. In fact, I devote like a little mini chapter in my Step into the Spotlight book is called "What If I'm Shy?" Mm-hmm. Because I have been asked this over the years. Number one, from people who consider themselves shy. Number two, over the many years that I've been coaching, I have people from certain ethnicities where in that ethnic background, you are not supposed to promote yourself. You're supposed to be very humble. Humility is taught. And I had, a client from Japan, a client from India, a client from saying, Tsufit, I can't do these things. That's just not my culture. That's not. And I said, you know what? You don't have to do anything that is not comfortable for you. You don't have to do anything that doesn't feel authentic for you. You don't have to brag. You don't have to say how great you are. I mean, that's the one thing I would not suggest that people do what Trump does in terms of, I'm so great, I'm so smart. That doesn't work. That just makes him look like an idiot, right? I mean, it doesn't, anybody that walks around saying I'm so smart, it has the opposite effect. So definitely that's something you should not be learning from him. And I'm not suggesting people dance on stage with 12 boas and tap dance and dance with seals on their head. All I'm saying is, first of all, if you're shy promoting yourself, it doesn't have to be you. It could be the book you wrote. It could be the program. It could be the company. It could be a spokesperson. Or it could just be the solution that you have. So for example, I didn't come up with this, but the very common example that people give is if you had the cure for cancer and you saw somebody suffering, would you be shy about telling them about it? Of course you would not be shy. I mean, if you thought you could help that person, if you thought you could save that person, would you say, I would go save that person and I would go help them, except I'm too shy? No, you wouldn't. You would think about the other person. So the truth is, and this I wrote in my book, and again, it wasn't my idea, but sometimes shyness is self-centeredness. And I know we don't think of it this way, but sometimes shyness is thinking so much that people are thinking about us that, they're going to think that I look funny, or that, why am I wearing that? Or why am I not speaking better? Or why? Not everybody's thinking about you. Everybody's thinking about themselves. That's why, you go to a networking event and there's, 100 people in a room and they pass the mic around, right? And the realtor stands up and says, now's a really good time to buy or sell house. And then the financial, just like I told you before, right? And when it's your turn to stand up, you're so worried about what you're going to say. But guess what? 99% of the people are not even hearing what you're going to say because they're just thinking about what they're going to say when the microphone gets to them. Unless, and this is the big unless you learn how to step into the spotlight in such a way and be so dynamic in those 30 seconds that they will have no choice but to look up and hear what you're saying and sort of have an interruption to their obsessive thinking about how shy they are and how nervous they are that they're going to have to stand up. And by the way, silence is one of the most effective. See how uncomfortable that was when I was, what was that, a second and a half? But in radio or on TV or even live, that kind of a silence that I just did right there, like, Manuj just made me think, what happened? Did the phone drop off? What's she doing? Where's she go? Why is she talking? That kind of silence, if you're standing in a room of 100 people who are all introducing themselves, I've done this before, where it's my turn and I'll say something and then I'll just be silent for like 2 or 3 excruciatingly long seconds. Anyone who was thinking about what they're going to say and was, being shy about it, they're going to be interrupted and they're going to look up and they're going to look at me and think, why is nobody talking? Like, it's like the background noise disappeared, right? And then they will look at me. And when I see 100 sets of eyes looking at me, that's when I'm going to talk. So, by the way, that's not in direct answer to your question about what if I'm shy or what if I'm not confident. That's actually veering off to how you break through. But back to your question, there was an old movie in the 80s. And it was called Punchline. It was with Sally Field and Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks played a comedian, and Sally Field played a housewife who really wanted to be, go to comedy clubs, and she just wasn't very funny. So she spent $500 of her family's grocery money to buy some jokes from Tom Hanks, and she went on stage and did them, and she bombed, right? It just didn't work. And Tom Hanks took her aside and said, no, you got to speak in your own voice. So to those people who feel shy or not confident, remember these things. Number one, it's not about you. It's not about you. You're shy because you think it is about you, but it's not about you. It's about what you know that can help somebody. So if you stop thinking about yourself and how shy you are, or what a bad speaker you are, or how bad you look, or how, whatever it is, if you stop thinking about you, and you start thinking about the people in the audience that you could help with whatever it is that you do, number one, that's going to help you get over your shyness. And number two, there are some techniques you can use to pump yourself up. So before I would go and sing somewhere, or perform or even speak, I would drive there with Latin music, playing loudly on my car CD player, just to pump me up, to get the adrenaline going. You can jump up and down. You can, when I speak on stage, I try to use powerful. I mean, I don't, do it deliberately, but it's just natural. You use powerful posing. You don't keep your hands, to your side or on the podium. My hands are out in the air, right? Just like if you send your kids to take gymnastics, which I did. My younger two took gymnastics. The very first thing that they taught them was not, how to do a somersault or how to do a cartwheel. The very first thing they taught them was, ta-da, what you do at the end of your move. How, you remember at the Olympics, like they land after their big jump and they put their arms out in the air and they say ta-da. That's what they teach them. And what that does is it brings confidence. So in order to increase your confidence, you can do that. The other thing that will help increase your confidence is make sure that whatever it is that you're offering is amazing. Like if you're showing up to offer something and you're not really even sure if it's that good, stay home and eat Twinkies. I mean, like, don't go there until it is that good, because you know what? I couldn't go to a networking meeting with my book if I didn't think this book is amazing and it's going to help people, right? I just couldn't. And in fact, that's not just Tsufit being Tsufit. That is the reason that I didn't publish a previous book. I had written a previous book called How to Be Your Own Publicist. And I decided it wasn't good enough. It wasn't distinct enough. It wasn't unique enough. And I wouldn't have felt that confident going to these meetings promoting it, because I would have known there's something better I could have done. So what I did, I condensed it and made a really strong chapter 5 to the Step Into the Spotlight book. But the rest of it was all new stuff. And now I feel confident. So so I took my own advice, even though I thought I was done, I wasn't ready to confidently go promote it until I knew it was amazing.
Awesome. That's great. Those were some really insightful learnings in a short period. Now we are running over time, but I can continue talking to you. But just in the interest of making sure that people get enough, is there anything else you would like to add to this interview, and maybe we can have a follow-up conversation later?
Sure. I mean, I'd be happy to do another one at some future point. If I may, I'd like to just give a few links where people can find me. Is that all right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So if you want to read the Step Into the Spotlight book, go to www.spotlightbook.com. Spotlightbook.com. That will take you straight to Amazon, where you can look inside the book or buy the book, or you can ask your local library to order it for you. If you want to join the LinkedIn group that Manuj is a member of and I'm a member of, and almost 10,000, probably by the time you hear this, more than 10,000 entrepreneurs will be members of, you can go to www.spotlightgroup.biz, B-I-Z. And if you want some free tips, and this is something you definitely want to do the second you hear this, grab a pen and paper, write this down, or just type it in. Go to www.spotlightsecrets.com, Spotlight Secrets with an S at the end, .com, and you will get a series of free tips by email about how you can stand out in just 30 seconds, how you can step into the spotlight in a short period of time. If you want to know more about me, you can go to Tsufit.com. That's Tsufit.com. So you asked if there's anything more that I want to add. Well, actually, I think I just demonstrated a couple of those things. One is make sure people know how to find you, right?
Yeah.
But don't do it at the beginning, because if you go to the beginning, let's say you're at a networking meeting and you just say, well, go to my website, nobody cares. Like, you haven't shown them that there's any value to that. Number two, I just demonstrated something very interesting to you guys, and I don't know if you guys realize it. All the URLs that I gave you, spotlightbook.com to buy my book, spotlightsecrets.com to get my series, spotlightgroup.biz to get in my LinkedIn group, or even Spotlight blog to go to my blog, spotlightblog.com. All of those, what do they have in common? They have my branding, which is Spotlight, which is like Step Into the Spotlight. That's number one. Number two, those are actually forwards. So if you go to GoDaddy or wherever you buy your URLs, and if you're doing radio interviews or TV interviews, or just standing in front of a group of people, or just one-on-one with somebody, and you want to tell them how to find you, you don't want to go to www.excellentbusinessadministration.com/URL, and have this long thing. You want to have a short 1 or 2 word forward. Now, if you go to any of these places, it might jump up as followthatdream.ca, blah, 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 big long thing, right? but I don't remember what the big long thing is, and I don't have to, and you don't have
Yeah.
to, because I gave you a short forward. So that's another little trick that your listeners can do. Make sure you memorize them and make them easy so that your audience can memorize them, so that they actually will connect with you and learn from you.
Awesome. That's great. Very good advice. Thank you so much for sharing all these insights. I think many people in the audience got a lot of value out of it. So thanks a lot.
My pleasure, Manuj.
Thank you.
If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that like button. It will mean the world to us. And again, if you want to be notified about our new content, please consider subscribing to our channel. And now, if you are an existing or an aspiring technology entrepreneur, then I invite you to check out my new online workshop, Bootstrapping Your Tech Startup Dreams. Go to go.tetranoodle.com/boot-podcast and sign up for free. I want to make sure more successful and sound decisions are made every day in your tech projects. Let's start finding solutions to your problems. So go to go.tetranoodle.com/boot-podcast, and I look forward to helping you with your tech startup.